Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Right now at 5, power in the Senate still hangs in the balance in Georgia. One race still too close to call as Democrats claim victory in the other. We'll have the latest count coming up. And in Washington, D.C. today, thousands will descend to march in support of the president. Lawmakers will gather to certify the results of the presidential election, with some Republicans planning to object. We'll tell you what that could change still ahead. And here at home, local hospitals and facilities across the state are preparing for a crisis as hospitalizations and ICU numbers hit records in Kern. We'll have a look at what those plans mean on this Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. Good morning at 5 a.m. Good to have you with us. I'm Maddie Jansen, anchoring from here at home in Tehachapi. Alex Fisher's holding down the fort in studio. We have a lot to get to this morning, but first we want to talk about your forecast. Yesterday, it was so soupy for the first half of the day, and then it burned off. It was absolutely beautiful.
Let's turn things over to Kevin Charette, who has a look at our forecast on this Wednesday. Hi, Kev.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Maddie, and good morning, Kern County. And not as much fog as we saw yesterday, especially over the Tehachapi area, but we still have a dense fog advisory in place for the valley. Let's show you our visibility map right now and where that fog is. And you can see the red and the orange indicates the thickest of the fog north of Kern County, but we're starting to see a little bit of development into the valley. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to show you our fog severity index. Bakersfield at 4 miles right now, Delano at 7, but Merced, if you're headed up that direction, they're down to 0 with 1 mile visibility out of Fresno. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And we have the dense fog advisory in place until 11 a.m. And that includes the areas around Bakersfield. But we just haven't seen much in terms of the fog formation yet. And mainly because we did see some clouds overnight, as you can see on the west-facing slopes of the Tehachapi Mountains bleeding into the valley. So that's kind of helped us in terms of the fog formation. And you can see nothing in downtown. We've got 41 degrees, a calm wind right now for Bakersfield. And as we take a look at the day, a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will be back into the 50s, upper 50s this afternoon. Tehachapi, look at that. No fog right now. We've got a temperature currently of 43. Still a little bit breezy. Wind out of the east at 14. Hour by hour here, you can see those 50s expected this afternoon and a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. I'll have much more coming up in just a little bit. For now, back over to you.
All right, Kev, thanks so much. You're taking a live look at Capitol Hill this morning as Washington, D.C. is on high alert this morning. Police arrested half a dozen people last night as thousands of pro-Trump supporters marched through the nation's capital. More protesters are expected today as Congress prepares to certify Joe Biden's presidential victory. Tracy Potts is in Washington with the story.
Good morning, Alex. We've been tracking those Georgia election results while you were sleeping. Coming in overnight, one race was called, the other still up in the air, so we still don't know which party will control the U.S. Senate. We do know that the Senate and the House get together today to certify the presidential election, with protests already happening inside and outside the Capitol. Pro-Trump protests are drawing thousands to the nation's capital.
I came out here to support Donald Trump.
There have already been 6 arrests, including the leader of the Proud Boys. He's been banned from the city. President Trump speaks at a Save America rally this morning as lawmakers gather to certify the presidential election, with Vice President Pence presiding. The president tweeted falsely that if Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. But Pence only announces the results. He can't change them. A person close to the vice president says he'll follow the law. At least 13 Republican senators and dozens in the House plan to object.
This is about the integrity of our elections. And this is about taking a stand.
You have the president and these Republican senators essentially taking a flamethrower to our democracy.
The objections may delay but not stop Congress from declaring Joe Biden the winner. Overnight, NBC declared a winner in one of Georgia's 2 Senate races.
I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia.
Democrat Raphael Warnock projected to defeat Senator Kelly Loeffler. She did not concede.
We're going to make sure every vote is counted.
The race between David Perdue and Jon Ossoff still too close to call this morning. That race will decide which party controls the Senate. Thousands of ballots are still waiting to be counted in Georgia today. One election official says with a race this close, could take them a couple of days to get a result. I'm Tracy Potts, 17 News.
And of course, 17 News is your local election headquarters, and our senior political reporter, Eitan Wallace, is joining us this morning to talk a little bit about what the Georgia Senate race looks like and stands at this hour. Good morning, Eitan. It seems like this is November 2.0.
Oh, yes, Alex. Seems like it's November 2.0. And here's why this is such an important race. It all comes down to the balance of power. Remember, the Democrats hold a slim majority, but it is a majority in the House of Representatives. With Biden's victory, they have a majority they control the executive branch, the presidency. But the big question, will they control the United States Senate? Well, this was going in to the Senate race yesterday. You can see here Republicans had 50 Republicans in the Senate leading up to yesterday's vote, and 48 Democrats. 51 seats are needed for control. So here you see Georgia and Georgia, the two only seats not yet called, or not before the race, that is, not yet called. So we had 48 Democrats and 50 Republicans. So if two Democrats win these two seats, well, then we're at 50-50. And you might be wondering, well, how does that change the balanced power of the Senate if it's a tie, 50-50? Remember, the vice president controls a tie vote. And in this case, Kamala Harris, vice president-elect, would be the ultimate tiebreaker. There you have it. Democrats would retain control of the Senate and all three major bodies in U.S. government. So that's why this race is so important. Let's show you where things stand right now. As you just heard from Tracy Potts, Raphael Warnock, projected winner by NBC News. He declared his victory last night, saying he would be a senator for all of Georgia. Let me show you where the data looks right now. Here it is. Raphael Warnock, 50.6% of the vote. Kelly Loeffler, 49.4%. Warnock earning about 2.2 million, whereas Kelly Loeffler getting 2.1 million votes there. Let's show you the other race here. This is not called yet. NBC News saying it's too close to call. John Ossoff and David Perdue, the incumbent Republican. Ossoff currently in the lead at 2,208,717, whereas Perdue at 2,192,347. Ossoff 50.2%, Perdue 49.8%. Now, NBC News as of this morning saying about 98,000 votes NBC News expects still left to count in this race, but Ossoff in the lead there. So that is important to watch. We will be watching it, and the Georgia Secretary of State saying we may not have final results until at least this afternoon. So we'll be watching that. Wanted to say, though, that Ossoff saying, his campaign manager saying that they believe that Ossoff will come out with the victory. Perdue's campaign manager saying the same thing, that they will come out with the victory, and nobody has conceded in either race, as you heard, but Raphael Warnock in the other race declared victory. Now, in the next half hour, we will talk about the upcoming congressional certification of the Electoral College and what we could expect there. In the meantime, back to you.
All right, thanks, Eitan. 5:08 your time now. The Wasco City Council held its first meeting of the new year last night, where they talked about a number of issues, including public safety. One suggestion to improve safety, a shot spotter system like the one that the Bakersfield Police Department has in place. It alerts BPD when shots are fired and directs them to the area. The shot spotter system has been a success in Bakersfield, as BPD hopes to expand the system in the coming year.
Roughly about $50,000 per square mile. The city is about 4 square miles. Whether or not we want to encompass the entire area or just the core where most of the crimes are occurring, we estimated that based off a 2 mile square mile area, you're looking at $100,000 per year.
There was also talk of using Measure X funds for security camera rebates for citizens and businesses, among other things. Bakersfield Mayor Karen Go was sworn in last night for a second term. Go took the oath of office before yesterday's city council meeting. Newly elected Ward 6 city council member Patty Gray was also sworn in. She and Eric Arias are the two new faces on the council. Arias was sworn in last month along with incumbents Andre Gonzalez and Bruce Freeman.
From our 17 follow-up file, the search continues this morning for 2 California city boys missing for more than 2 weeks. A search party was held on Monday in Bakersfield near the intersection of Cottonwood Road and Casa Loma Drive. Organizers say that's one of the areas they believe the boys were last seen. It follows another search party happening in California City. It happened over the weekend. That's where businesses have offered rewards totaling $25,000 to anyone who can find the boys. If you have any information, you can call the California City Police Department. Their number is 760-373-8606. Or if you'd like to remain anonymous, you can call the Secret Witness line at 661-322-4040. And today's sobering news on the coronavirus front, as we've learned hospitals in Kern and across the state are preparing to make difficult decisions that could mean life or death for many. 17's Taylor Schaub joins us live this morning from Adventist Health downtown with more. Good morning, Taylor.
Good morning, Alex. As we shatter hospital and ICU records here in Kern, a letter sent from an anonymous viewer to 17 News shows that Adventist Health hospitals are preparing for the darkest days of the pandemic. And seems like they're not the only ones. 17 News confirmed hospitals across the state will be required to publish crisis plans if the coronavirus situation worsens. It's important to note Kern County is not considered to be in a crisis situation at this moment, but Alex, in a letter from Adventist Health, healthcare workers are preparing to make difficult decisions for patients who may be in a dire state. The letter reads, physician-led teams will make care decisions based on health status and ethical principles to ensure, quote, equity and justice. You may remember 17 News told you yesterday about the healthcare crisis in Los Angeles County, where ambulance crews are being told to reserve oxygen and deny transportation to patients who aren't expected to survive. Meantime, in Kern County, we've surpassed 400 hospitalizations, a record since the beginning of the pandemic. 90 of those patients are in the ICU, which is another record. This isn't necessarily surprising, as our local health department predicted this surge in hospitals last summer, but local health officials are saying that Kern isn't expected to reach its hospitalization peak until early February. That means we could be weeks away before we see this current surge decline. And we want to reiterate right now that Adventist Health hospitals and other hospitals do not currently have these plans in place. They're merely putting them in place for and being prepared for the worst case scenario if it were to arise. Now, we will update you on any information about this on our website, kget.com, throughout the day. In downtown Bakersfield, Taylor Schaub, 17 News.
Taylor, thank you. Meantime, some discouraging news as California runs out of hospital beds across the state. The Office of Emergency Services says the USNS Mercy is not available. State officials say it is out of service for mandatory maintenance and in dry dock. You may remember the vessel was deployed to Southern California at the beginning of this pandemic.
Local elementary school students know 31-year-old Kenneth Wichard as an energized, passionate choir teacher. But for the last 2 days, he's been at Memorial Hospital fighting to breathe. Wichard spoke about his battle with COVID-19 in a heart-touching video on Facebook yesterday.
I'm sorry, I just have to catch my breath a little bit. It's really lonely. People who think this stuff is a joke, it's not a joke. And just wanting to hug my kids and be with my wife. And I miss my students and I miss teaching.
Wichard's been a choir teacher at McKinley Elementary School for almost a decade. Outside of teaching at McKinley, Kenneth started an online choir academy with his wife during the pandemic. On Sunday, he was admitted to Memorial Hospital with pneumonia, which stemmed from a coronavirus infection. Those closest to Kenneth say he loves what he does, always putting his students and others first. Many of his former and current students have reached out to offer support.
Thank you so much for the messages because they help. I sometimes go back to them and just read them when I feel a little alone.
Kenneth Wichard and his wife are hoping he can be out of the hospital by tomorrow. We'll have the latest on his video message on our website at kget.com. And we're praying for you, Kenneth. All right, 5:40 is your time now. The vaccination process continues here in Kern County with more than 26,000 doses administered so far. Public Health Director Matt Constantine says the majority of medical staff who can get a vaccine have. but some have refused. Constantine says healthcare providers have contingency plans for what to do with those unwanted vaccines.
It does get fairly tricky. If you have a small doctor's office and there's only 3 employees, well, then I need to group you with another doctor's office so that I can use that certain vial, to make sure I maximize its use. So the logistics are pretty tricky with this vaccine, but the healthcare providers are doing a fantastic job.
Constantine also went into detail about the state's current rollout plan with healthcare workers and vulnerable populations first in line at Tier 1, which he says are almost complete. Then vaccines go to other healthcare providers, then laboratory and pharmacy workers, followed by older populations without health concerns, and finally, the general public. Welcome back here at 5:20 and making headlines around the nation this morning. Hip-hop artist and producer Dr. Dre is in a Los Angeles area hospital this morning after suffering a brain aneurysm. The 55-year-old took to Instagram writing he was doing great and hoped to be home soon. He also thanks staff at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in LA, where he's been getting treatment. Dre, whose real name is Andre Young, has produced some of the biggest names in hip-hop, including Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar. He's an original member of hip-hop group NWA and is a co-founder of Beats Electronics.
Prosecutors in Wisconsin announced yesterday no charges will be filed in the Jacob Blake shooting. Blake was shot 7 times in the back and partially paralyzed in a confrontation with Kenosha police last summer. The shooting triggered several nights of protests. The district attorney said he could not make a case against officers who claimed self-defense, adding Blake was armed with a knife and resisted arrest. Jacob Blake's family said they will not stop seeking justice. And in a related court case, Kyle Rittenhouse pleaded not guilty to shooting and killing 2 men and wounding a third in Kenosha. The Illinois teen entered his plea during a hearing via teleconference. The 18-year-old traveled to Kenosha allegedly with an assault-style rifle. He claimed he was answering a call to protect businesses following the Jacob Blake shooting and fired in self-defense. Rittenhouse faces multiple charges, including intentional homicide.
On a lighter note now, the United States captured the gold medal at the World Junior Hockey Championships, and the celebration's priceless. Take a look.
Red, white, blue, and gold.
Team USA beat Canada 2-0 in Edmonton, and this was the reaction as the U.S. players flew off the bench to congratulate one another. It's one of the best moments in all of sports. Elation and pride on display for all to see. Spencer Knight made 33 saves for the shutout, and the gold medal was the 5th for USA Hockey at this tournament. Congratulations go out to Team USA, the 2021 World Junior Hockey Champions.
KGET Business Watch is brought to you by Grapevine MSP Technology Services, the Valley's leading IT service provider.
Welcome back here at 5:25 in your Business Watch. We're 6 days into the new year. What's the resolution costing you? The Retail Me Not conducted a survey and found 70% of Americans made a resolution for the new year, and fitness remains a high priority. Among Americans making resolutions, 71% have their sights set on health and fitness in 2021. 34% say they expect to spend money to maintain their resolution this year. On average, they're planning to spend $666, which is $167 more than last year. Amazon makes a major purchase to beef up its air cargo fleet. The e-commerce giant bought 11 767 aircrafts from Delta and WestJet. The planes will join the fleet by 2022 after they're converted from passenger jets to cargo planes. The company will continue to rely on third-party carriers to operate these new aircraft. Amazon's air expansion comes at a time when customers are relying on fast, free shipping more than ever.
For almost a decade, people around the world have opted out of drinking alcohol in January to start the new year off with a clean slate. A change in laws has given consumers an alternative to partake in. NBC's Dan Shinneman has details.
For many Americans, this is dry January, putting down the bottle and perhaps picking up something else.
We did a recent survey with Harris Poll and found that a lot of patients, around 30% of the patients that had turned to cannabis, were using cannabis instead of alcohol.
A survey by Curaleaf says Americans who have started using or increasing the use of cannabis since the pandemic are using it to deal with stress, to relax, and to aid sleep. It's also legally available in many states.
There's been a really big sea change in cannabis use over the past couple of years. We're now at a point where more than half of the United States has access to legal cannabis in some form.
And there are a wide range of options for consumers.
And that's things like tinctures and mints and nano gummies, all these things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with cannabis.
But before starting, Dr. Stacia Woodcock says, talk to an expert.
I think coming into a dispensary, talking with a pharmacist like me or an associate that's really educated is what's most important, because people are trying to figure this out on their own. They may not necessarily know what ratios and dosages are right.
Be careful and legal this new year. Dan Sheneman, NBC News.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.